Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy. Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Cretans.
Back to the classic, the Cretans. Still one of
That's what they are.
my top favorites. They're Cretans? Oh, no, those Can You Brew It listeners that are Cretans.
That's true.
Those people, I don't know. I don't know what they do on that show. It's absolutely not worth listening to. It's crap. Total crap.
I've always liked it.
Well, you like the Cretans. That's why. That's I don't care for the host or any of that shit. It really sucks. Speaking of which, Can You Brew It? We have one of the. We have one of the.
I was going to say, Tasty's a good guy. The host is okay.
Yeah, Tasty's fine. It's the other guy that I can't stand.
Well, but Justin doesn't really count though. I mean, he's not like an official host, right?
No, Justin's fine.
You're a good guy, John.
It's that other guy. I just can't stand him. I really can't. Tasty, what do you think? How do you get along? How do you get along with that guy?
We put up with it.
That's. I don't know how you do it. It's really just he's dragging the whole show down.
It's his show. What are we gonna do?
Dragging it down. Yeah. Well, Yeah, I guess that's how things go. That's how it's done in the world.
Problem with the other guy. Problem with the other guy is that he gets a brand new Blickman top-tier system, and he can't even find the time to put it together. That's what I don't like about him.
Really.
What the heck's up with that?
What is up with
You
that?
missing parts or what? Come on,
He's got some sort of issue with stainless, I guess.
He's allergic to it, I think.
I've been traveling. I've been on the road. I've been I did Australia, New Zealand. I did.
There's wheels for that thing. Just hook it up to the back of the RV.
300 miles, and now I'm taking my daughter and her friends on a road trip down to visit colleges. So I'll be gone another week. And it's just
the visicologist. What's a visicologist?
A visicologist checks the viscosity of colleges.
Okay.
College road trip, and
didn't they make a movie about that?
Yes. It's going to be us all over again. Except this time I don't have Peter along to do the videotaping. But we're going to go and visit a bunch of different colleges. We'll be down your way, Palmer. Probably like Monday or Tuesday evening.
Oh,
I'll be up for a beer if you're around.
Definitely.
You're going to be doing... let's see. Pepperdine, USC, UCLA, Cal Poly, around that area, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right on the way.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You're gonna have to come out and beer with me.
Okay.
I'm going to send the kids off to visit the colleges, and then I'm going to be drinking beer.
Cool.
That's
Take my favorite spot.
Right.
Lucky Baldwin's in Pasadena.
Lucky Baldwin's, Pasadena. I'll be there, I think. And it'll be a lot of fun. I also got a trip coming up, GABF, coming up September 15th, 16th, 17th,
nice.
18th, around in there.
Yeah, 16th, 17th, 18th.
Yeah, I'll only be there until Saturday morning. I got to fly back for my daughter's birthday. But I'll be there, I think, starting Monday evening. I'm going to get out there, going to do the judging, and then going to sign books on Thursday and Friday, and then fly back on Saturday morning. But all those evenings, I'll be up for beers. If any listeners are out there, come on down. Let's get our drink on.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll have a wild old time.
I think we'll all be out there, but Tasty's not going this year. How many years since you missed a GABF, Tasty?
I just went the last 3, so it's not like I'm a 10-year run or something.
I'm breaking some record here.
No.
All right.
Probably just for volume of beer consumed.
Yeah.
Breaking that record.
Oh, yeah, right, for sure.
Yeah. This year they asked him to stay away.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more beer available this year.
That's right.
At the,
the Russian River will last longer.
Good stuff. Well, what about you, Tasty? You got any? How did your trip to St. Louis and all that go? I didn't get a chance to hear about that. You probably talked about it on the Sunday session, but I can't be troubled listening to that stuff.
Yeah, that's just a lot of gibberish.
Yeah.
One great. Got to meet up with about 35, I was going to say listeners, but I think about a third were listeners, and then 2/3 were kind of split between two local homebrew clubs.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of nice. Stephen Hale from Schlafly's specialty brewery there in the tap room was a great host. He led us into the cellar, and were able to, drink in a really nice atmosphere down there.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Did you go to a rock concert again last night, Tasty?
I've got this cough, and it's kind of getting stuck in my throat a little bit. But
all right.
It'll be better in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the HIV, I think.
Could be.
Hey, just real before you move too far ahead, make sure you post when you're going to Lucky Baldwin's. A lot of people in the chat room want to know. They want to meet you down there too.
Okay.
So you guys got to make sure you notify people.
Yeah, you gotta follow the Twitter or the Facebook.
Yeah.
Or
I don't Twitter, so
the both of them.
That's how I find out where Jay-Z is now too. When he can do a show, I just look at his Twitter.
Like, oh, yeah.
See if he's listening.
He's in town. He's not. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's where I post all my my drinking. When I'm getting my drink on, I usually, while I'm still sober, I rattle off a Twitter.
What is it? Twitter.com/Mr. Malty?
Yes.
Mr. Malty. There you go.
Twitter.com/.
What's yours, Palmer? You have one too, don't you?
No, I don't have a Twitter account.
Oh, okay. Just go through Jay-Z's then.
There you go. Yeah. So, I try and post that, and if I'm posting it there, you're absolutely welcome to come out and join up and have a good time with us. Doesn't matter if family's there or not. If I'm posting it, then you're it's public and you're invited. So don't hesitate. Don't be shy. All right, so we're wrapping up our High Gravity Brewing series with one final show, and we're going to talk about fermentation of high gravity beers, aging of high gravity beers, and also brewing high gravity beers for increased volume in this show. And that's why we got Tasty in here to help with that. And he's done a fair amount of that, and more than I have and Palmer has combined.
That's right.
2 batches.
2 batches, yeah.
2 years in a row. I haven't done this year's yet, so it'll be 3 soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into our final High Gravity Brewing show. Back after this.
When you hear Blickman Engineering, think innovation, passion, quality, and customer service. Blickman gear is designed by brewers to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon. Keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
BN Army members, are you looking for a discount on hops? Keep listening. Nico's Homebrew Supply at nicobrew.com has hops by the ounce and by the pound. Choose from varieties like Amarillo, Centennial, East Kent Goldings, Hollertower, Simcoe, Summit, Tomahawk, Warrior, Willamette, and more. And adding new varieties all the time, many for less than $20 a pound. Whether a couple ounces at a time or an 11-pound bag, all hops are shipped vacuum sealed and frozen straight to you. Nico's Homebrew Supply offers store-wide $5 flat rate shipping and won't waste your money on unnecessary overhead or advertising. They're going bare bones and passing the savings on to you. The staff at Nico's Homebrew Supply loves to brew and is committed to keeping homebrewing affordable and accessible to anyone who wants to join in this great hobby. And for a limited time, use coupon code BNARMY at checkout for a Brewing Network discount. Visit nicobrew.com. That's NIKO brew.com for your hops and more. nicobrew.com, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
And now, Northern Brewer brings you another installment of The Time Brewers.
When last we left our heroes, they found themselves in 1842 in the province of Bohemia.
Yo, this era jerky. All the beers is murky.
What ho, friends, a male alewife.
I don't know what I'm doing, so I got this dark malt, yeah? More stinky dark beer, yeah.
No, sir. Please, wait. Just a moment.
Aye, a package from the future from Northern Brewer.
Use the Pilsner malt, my good man. And these Sots hops, sucker. They ain't noble like Queen Victoria, but you can use Sterling from Portland to Astoria. Let your wort caramelize and let melanoidins harmonize in a long boil. Keep your starter under cover with aluminum foil. Boo.
And useth thou some bog myrtle.
Northern Brewer is your one-stop homebrew supplier throughout the entire fermento chronosphere. The widest selection of quality malt, hops, yeast, $7.99 flat rate shipping, and get your nasty-ass bog myrtle back to the dark ages, Brother Abelard.
Hey, this golden lager with the happy hops pretty damn good. Thanks, Time Brewers. Thanks, Northern Brewer.
Our work here is done, my friends. Now, to wherever we are next needed.
Tune in next time for the continuing adventures of the Time Brewers.
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah!
Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking high-gravity fermentation. And one of the things that we want to talk about is fermentation, right? When you're looking at fermenting a high-gravity beer, obviously there's a couple of things you need to consider. One is, pitching rate, right? Amount of yeast, oxygen, things like that. And I think that, a lot of people are pretty familiar with that. Wouldn't you say, Tasty?
I think everybody that's made a high-gravity beer knows that they've got to, make sure they watch their pitch rate and oxygenation and the mashing temperatures. Give the beer every chance to attenuate, because the yeast are going to spend a fair amount of their time in a high alcohol, hostile environment, and we want to make sure you give them a chance to finish out.
Right. And one of the things that I find interesting is if you're making a high gravity beer, there's that they say over a certain gravity, I think it's 1082 or something like that, you're going to want to add additional oxygen. Usually you don't add oxygen once you've pitched, after your yeast has started fermenting, you don't add oxygen. Well, in a high-gravity beer, past that point, after the yeast have done a cell division, you go ahead and you goose them with some more oxygen, usually somewhere in the 12 to 18-hour range. You can give them another shot of oxygen, and they'll take that in, and actually gives them better cell membrane health. They're able better to regulate the flow of alcohol in and out of the cell, things like that, stand the higher osmotic pressure of a higher gravity beer, this, that, and the other thing. And makes a big difference in final attenuation of the beer. Have you ever tried that, Mike?
Yeah, when I do a bigger beer, I always do a second oxygenation. Mm-hmm. I tend to I've gone towards keeping my oxygenation regimen to a minimal amount. I know you can over-oxygenate a beer. Right, I'm afraid of getting there. So I am even in some of my maybe like a 1070 beer, I might do the very same thing. Maybe 8 hours later, not 18. Mm-hmm. But I'm getting more to using shorter but multiples on a little bit bigger beers. And certainly, if it's above 1080 or so, I would definitely do a second, and maybe even a third. Really, anytime before high kreuzen, I think. Right. I think you're okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of the 18-hour limit.
Yeah, you're talking about high kreuzen.
Yeah, and 12 is probably a good time. Right in that 8 to 12 range is probably a kind of a sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on various factors on the yeast, but that would probably be one of the most significant, I think, things that you're going to want to do for fermentation of a high gravity beer. What else? What about things like blowing off? Do you
blowing off? I'll blow you off anytime.
That's
what I do on the other show, isn't it?
About blow off of the fermenter. On high gravity beers, do you experience more often? Do you get a blow off problem?
Often rather vigorous. That's why I always use firm control on a high gravity beer.
Okay.
And make sure that my fermentation vessel is not like overfilled.
Mm-hmm.
You basically you'll lose as much beer as extra you put in. So why bother? So
right.
Make sure you've got room for high krausen. Use a foam control kind of aid to keep it down to a reasonable amount.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course another thing I like to do in high gravity beers is to as I do on any beer is drive the fermentation. Like when I notice that things are slowing down, what can I do to speed it up? Can I roust the yeast? Can I raise the temperature?
Mm-hmm.
Can I what other things can I do? Can I I don't know. Those are two things that I primarily do. Sometimes I'll pitch a little more yeast if I think that I may have underpitched for some reason, that it's just dying too fast.
Well, one of the things I like that you mentioned is raising the temperature. So I like to have a more controlled temperature at the beginning, or a little lower temperature at the beginning of fermentation.
Give you some room to work with. Yeah.
And then towards the end, last third of fermentation especially, make sure I've got the temperature up several degrees, maybe 5 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 or 3 degrees C. And make sure that I'm getting good attenuation all the way through to the end. Yeast is starting to slow down, and anything you do to drive it. Also on big beers that tend to get stuck or not fully attenuate, even if it's an ale, one of the things I like to do is you can add some lager yeast at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Won't develop a lot of flavor, but it will tend to consume some of those longer chain sugars that the ale yeast wasn't able to consume.
Right. Yeah, I've done that with on second pitches where I would use another yeast, and so often a lager yeast, because it goes after some things that the ale yeast doesn't pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. What about you, John? Do you do anything special for fermentations, your fermentation profile at the end? We talked about doing the oxygen. We talked about raising the temperature. Do you do any of those?
I'll raise temperature. I'll swirl the fermenter a bit. Keep things moving if it seems like the yeast is tending to starting to settle out a bit. But yeah, I on the other hand, I try to drive it from the start. Better, higher pitching rate, more oxygenation at the beginning to make sure that they're strong. They're really it's a good strong ferment going in, and then we'll get less stress on the yeast that they'll have to clean up afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you listen to Can You Brew It, we did a show on Dogfish 120. And there's a good example of high gravity beer, and one of the ways to get a high gravity beer to ferment fully, if you're if a portion of the recipe is simple sugar, like table sugar, you don't want to dump all that simple sugar in at the beginning.
Right.
If you have too high a percentage of simple sugar, the yeast will just consume that, and they tend not to consume a lot of the maltose that's left over, and they tend to leave those more complex sugars. So you can actually begin fermentation without the simple sugar, and then closer to the end, last half or third of fermentation. As soon as you see that the yeast are starting to slow down, you can go ahead and start adding your sugar in little by little, and they will begin to consume that simple sugar as well, and you can actually get better attenuation that way.
Yeah. As you were saying earlier, with the addition of a lager yeast strains are better at fermenting maltotriose, the 3-chain sugar, as opposed to maltose, the 2-chain. Then ale yeasts are. Ale yeasts don't tend to ferment maltotriose very well, but the lager yeasts do. And so, as you say, if you got a high gravity fermentation going, and it seems to be slowing down, then add some lager yeast, and they will go after that maltotriose and help reduce those sugars better than the ale yeast alone would.
Now, what about final gravity and knowing when the beer has reached final gravity and differences between beers? Mike, you've done some experimentation with higher gravity beers. I remember one in particular. Back in the old studio, you brought in like 2 versions of a Belgian Blonde, I think it was, or a Golden Strong, something like that. And you had me taste them, and one was, sweeter than the other, quite a bit sweeter.
Right.
And I said, well, this one, must have finished 10 points higher than the other one. And it was actually the reverse.
Right.
And the sweeter one had finished lower in gravity, and the drier one finished in higher gravity.
Right. And it's all about what you're measuring at finish. I mean, when you're measuring, taking a hydrometer reading, you're measuring sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's more than one kind of sugar. There's, fermentable and unfermentable. So that was the trick that it was playing on us. And then, of course, there's another flavor component in there that's outside the sugar, and that's the alcohol itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which has a sweet flavor.
Very sweet. So I think that, and especially in a Golden Strong, that's well attenuated. And I think I considered both of those beers to be well attenuated. It's just the alcohol sweetness seemed to be driving it in the one that tasted sweet, because it was the predominant sweet flavor.
Mm-hmm.
All the sugars have actually were fermented out, thus making it more alcoholic.
Right. So if you have a high gravity beer that finishes fairly high, it could be sweet. It could not be sweet. A lot of times I'll get email from folks and they go, well, it finished at 10:30 or 10:25 or and it's going to be too sweet. I'm like, well, have you tasted it? What does it taste like? Well, it's kind of it seems a little sweet. Like, have you carbonated it? No. Well, carbonate it and then carbonate it, chill it, try it, and see, because a lot of times, it's fermented out fully. It just, based on the grains that were used or the mash profile, things like that.
Yeah,
you got a beer that it's finished out and it's not sweet. And other times, people, more rarely, I'll have people, send me an email. They go, yeah, it's still real sweet, but it finished out at 04, one Plato. I had one guy email me that. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. One Plato and it's too sweet. He's like, did I have a problem with my hops? Or I'm thinking, well, that one kind of, I'd have to taste it before I could say what exactly went wrong with that one.
Yeah, or check that hydrometer.
Right, and that was one of my thoughts.
Well,
we get that a lot. People go, well, it's reading this, and it actually went up. I'm like, the hydrometer, it's not going to go up. You're using your hydrometer wrong. And I'll send people that, and they're like, well, no, I'm using it right. I'm like, no, you're not. If you've got a rising reading, one day to the next, then you're not using your hydrometer right. The gas bubbles are causing it, or the temperature, or and also you need to work on using your hydrometer right.
Some sort of measurement error.
They kind of get offended, They're thinking, well, it's so simple. How could do you think I'm an idiot? It's like, it's not quite as simple as it looks like. There's tricks to it.
Another beer I have that finishes high. Of course, I do that intentionally. Is the Janus Brown. It's like a 1065 OG, and I want it to finish like a 1018. And man, I've had it finish at 1020, and I put it in front of somebody, and they'll taste it and they go, wow, this is so attenuated. It's amazing. It's like, well, I said, yeah. Would you believe it's 1020?
Right. Well, part of it is also the roast malts give it that dryness. And,
okay, and the dry, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then, of course, it's hopped to balance, right? So if it's, it's hiding the sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you can make a beer that measures high on the hydrometer but doesn't taste sweet because you've balanced it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, it depends on your mash temperatures and your fermentation temperatures, but you could have esters in your beer that give it sort of a sweet flavor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's sort of the problem with high gravity brewing. At those higher gravities, certain esters are produced that will add additional sweetness to your beer.
Well, speaking of esters, what about esterification of fusel alcohols, things like that? Well, what part does aging play in the development of a high gravity beer's flavor? John?
Yeah. A lot of the flavor development in aging is part of it's due to oxidation. You get oxidation and reduction reactions, melanoid or Maillard reactions, producing some interesting flavors with time. You'll get some fruit flavors developing from melanoidin formation due to aging. You get esterification of fusel alcohols. That's a slow process, and so it's a subtle thing, and you will experience it, but it's not something where I don't want people to think that they can take a beer that has a definite solvent taste and say, "Oh, I just need to age it to get that to go away." It's not going to work that well.
Well, if you do have that problem, does that process happen faster at a warmer temperature?
Yeah, but but you really at a warmer temperature.
If you boil that beer, will it?
No. All you really do, you're everything is going to happen at faster warm temperatures, and oxidation, staling. I mean, there's probably going to end up being a very small window where a beer at accelerated aging is going to be improved to drinkability before it dives down into undrinkability. So in general, you want to age a well-made beer and experience, and look for some flavor enhancements, look for some unique characteristics to develop with that beer, rather than saying, okay, this beer doesn't taste that great now, it may get better with time. That's really trusting to luck. The better that beer tastes, fresh, the better it will taste with some age too. So, but yeah, fusel alcohols will esterify. The alcohols will also oxidize into aldehydes and so on. So there's a lot of different reactions that will occur with aging. I think if we look at this in the context of high gravity brewing, as I said last show, the yeast are generally under more stress in a high gravity ferment, and here we're talking 1080 to 10100, or 1060 to 10100, nominally a 1080 beer in terms of a high gravity ferment. That is, there's going to be a little more stress on the yeast. They're going to produce more precursors. They're going to produce more fusel alcohols. They're going to produce more enzymes such as proteinase A, which can affect head retention over time. The better you plan for high gravity fermentation in terms of pitching rate and yeast vitality. You've made a good starter. You've aerated it well. You've added some yeast nutrient to that starter so that you've got a very healthy, very robust mass of yeast going into a higher gravity ferment. The less stress will be on the yeast, and the less aging of the beer will be required to achieve peak flavor.
Well, and the better the yeast can withstand the stress, right. It won't change the amount of stress that's on the yeast, but the better they can withstand the stress, especially things like zinc. You need to make sure, if you're using a yeast nutrient, that it does have zinc, or you need to add a separate zinc supplement as well to your wort. That's a big part of cell health and the membrane health, and as well as your oxygen, your other nutrients. And one other thing is your water. You need to make sure that a lot of these other minerals, copper and magnesium, iron, all this stuff, they are cofactors in enzymatic reactions, right?
Right. The copper, zinc, calcium, magnesium.
So those folks that are, starting from distilled water and then adding just, a couple of minerals back, you may not be helping your yeast very much. All those little trace elements is very, very minor amounts, but very important to the yeast and their ability to can run all these processes. There are some where they can substitute other things and still make it happen, but it's best if you have that kind of range of mineral salts for those enzymatic reactions.
They use like a buffet. They want a little bit of everything. They want whatever they need, they want. And so we should throw a few pennies in the bowl, right, John?
Yeah, well, the zinc content of pennies comes off.
Pre-1981.
Yeah,
old pennies.
Those were 95% copper and 5% zinc. Somebody sent me that.
Well, you meant, yeast nutrient. I have done that where I've got a beer that's, I think it's going to be hard to ferment, obviously, because it's high gravity. I'll add yeast nutrient to that beer.
Right.
Yeah.
Copper immersion chiller.
Oh, that's pretty. That'll take care of it right there.
Copper,
for sure.
Copper plate chiller, things like that.
One thing we haven't talked about here tonight is enzymes. That's sort of the new thing. Enzymes are going to be available to us homebrewers to get these things to ferment out.
Good point. Well, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, let's hear about enzymes from Tasty and John. Back after this.
Hi, I'm John from Grain and Grape in Melbourne, Australia. We've been supplying home brewers with equipment, ingredients and advice for over 20 years. We carry a great range of grain, hops, whey, liquid cultures and all the gear you need to make great beer, from the most basic setup to a fully automated Herm system. We're all keen brewers, so drop in on one of our twice-monthly all-grain brewing demos and have a chat with Chris, Dan, Paul, Nick or Sam. We'll talk about brewing and recipes and systems and techniques all day. If you're squeezed for time or just dabbling in all grain, try our range of artisan ale fresh work kits, brewed at Melbourne's very own Mountain Goat Brewery. We're very proud to be a major sponsor of the Australian National Homebrewing Conference. This year we've got Randy Mosher and Gordon Strong heading here for 3 big days in October. Mention the Brewing Network when you're ordering online or over the phone to receive freight free on your next order under 15 kilos. Check out our website grainandgrape.com.au for conditions, and we'll see you at the conference.
The cutting-edge equipment from Blickman Engineering is designed by brewers to make your brew day shorter, more enjoyable, and to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 10 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew for Your Die IPA in the Northeast, Northwest, parts of the Midwest, and Alaska in cans and on draft. So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in the can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial. Organic ingredients. Fresh, clean, good for you, good for the planet. Seven Bridges has the best selection of organic ingredients, including over 27 varieties of organic hops at breworganic.com. Join their mailing list for special deals and regular updates. They've been brewing organic and serving organic brewers for 13 years. They can help you brew great organic beer. And Seven Bridges is the proud host of the 4th Annual National Organic Brewing Challenge, the only BJCP-sanctioned nationwide brewing competition just for organic beers. Take the challenge this fall for a chance to win great prizes, including stainless steel brew kettles and organic brewing ingredients. This year, the challenge will be judged in 2 locations: on the East Coast at Capital City Brewing in Arlington, Virginia, and on the West Coast at Gordon Biersch in San Jose, California. For complete details, visit breworganic.com/competition. Seven Bridges is cooperatively owned in awesome Santa Cruz, California. Everyone there is dedicated to great beer and people-friendly business practices. They offer environmentally friendly, fair trade, and fair wage brewing products whenever possible. Seven Bridges, breworganic.com.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing.
This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Tasty and I talking during the break about barbecue. Makes me want to pull some pork.
Yes, pull it good.
Yeah, I love the pulled pork.
Yeah, I just built myself a new barrel barbecue.
You're serious?
Yeah, one of those ugly drum smokers. You know, a 55-gallon drum.
Whoa, big! Wow, gee.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try it out tomorrow.
Well, it sounds like you and Jamil should have a barbecue after you go to Baldwin's.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Yeah. You better have it ready. You need to start a couple days in advance.
Okay, well, I'll start Tuesday morning.
Some marinating.
There you go.
You can marinate in that wort you have sitting in your garage, not doing anything.
Yeah, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, you just dip some meat in there, and then you can still ferment it later. It'll be fine.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
No problem at all. All right, so before the break, we were talking about enzymes for high gravity beers. Now, Tasty, that's a great point. I know White Labs is coming out with some whole new line
several
of
varieties
enzymes.
there.
So,
Yes.
Have you experimented with any of those yet?
I have not. I have used Beano, of course, and somehow
in your beer.
In my beer. Helped my gas, but it didn't ferment. But no, it did help with the ferment, but I didn't really like the result. I felt that it took a lot of body out of the beer. It did fermented, things that I really didn't want to be fermented.
Yeah, it never stops working unless you heat it up.
Yeah, you got to stop it. So you put it in, and I don't know if you can. I guess I could filter it out. That way the yeast, get out, not doing anything. But yeah, I've done that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting, a commercial type product that's got instructions and levels that to add and stuff like that. It's gonna be fun. I'm going to be doing more, high gravity brewing because I feel like I'll have better control.
What styles do you intend to brew, Tasty?
Well, barley wines is a great example. Although I haven't had a problem doing barley wines without, my normal regimen seems to work fine in terms of attenuation, and that's really all I'm concerned about. Now, flavors, I don't know. Maybe I could if I didn't oxygenate so much, that is, let the enzymes take some of the load for me. If I didn't oxygenate as much, or say I didn't raise the fermentation temperature, do these other things to make it attenuate, I might have a more ester restrained beer because I'm keeping these other things capped a little bit more than I have been doing.
So you said, I don't quite understand what you said a moment earlier. You said you brew more high gravity beer because you feel you have better control. Mm. What do you mean by that?
Well, because my fear of high gravity brewing is that I won't get the attenuation I'm looking for. Uh-huh. That's just a bad beer. To me, that's not a. And I have no choices at the end.
So these things will help you better control your high gravity.
Well, it gives me almost a guarantee.
You will do more.
Yeah, this is like the Viagra for brewers.
So I was misinterpreting.
You're going to perform.
I was thinking you were saying you do more high gravity brewing because you have better control when you do high gravity brewing.
Well, I might. Yeah,
so
especially in light of the.
You will have better high.
Well,
control.
Think about the next segment where I'm doing high gravity brewing so I can make a lot of beer in a little bit amount of time and space.
Right, so let's go into that. That's one of the things that you've done a few times now. You'll brew a beer at a certain gravity, and then you'll water it down to make more volume of beer for your beer consuming public.
Yeah, for the space. I mean, I can only do a 10-gallon batch. That is when I'm done. I have 2 completely full 10-gallon cornies. Mm-hmm. I make 12 gallons of wort to do that. But when I'm done, I make this high gravity. For example, the one I do every year is a Bohemian Pilsner. It's about an 8% beer. I use the Bach 833 yeast. Comes out 8%, and while that's fermenting and moving it out of the fermenter and into the cellar, I've already boiled an equivalent amount of brewing water that I've chilled and carbonated to about. Mm-hmm. Same volume on carbonate the Bohemian Pilsner to. Mm-hmm. So I got this Imperial Bohemian Pilsner, and then depending on the event, the classic is when we took it to the golf course. And Justin was playing that day, and I watered it down to like 3.2 and put it in a little 2.5-gallon keg. Mm-hmm. Tasted pretty good. It's pretty interesting how. And I always do the blending the day of the event. So if it's a wedding or something, which is I've done it for a wedding before, where they need a bunch of beer. Mm-hmm. So I brewed 20 gallons of beer by brewing 10. Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, if you that's not an uncommon situation, especially in the summertime. Mm-hmm. You can't make enough light beer in the hot summer. Mm-hmm. So this is a way to, one strike of the burner to make twice as much beer.
So, and this is something that large commercial brewers do as well.
Yeah,
they'll brew high gravity because equipment and space is a premium, and then they can mix the water on with it later and make whatever their desired. And it's easier to target a specific strength beer later on and alcohol content because you can adjust the amount of water exactly
put the
with
switch
precision.
to Bud Light to Bud. It's the same beer. Just flip the switch.
Yeah. And then one of the things that you mentioned was that you use brewing water. So you're actually using water that you've added your mineral salts to. Yeah. And that's what you use to dilute back the beer. You don't use distilled water or anything like that. You use whatever your brewing water is.
The water that I didn't add at the beginning, I'm now adding at the end. Uh-huh. The very same water. I boil it to get the oxygen out when I'm doing that.
Right, that's important.
And then I force carbonate it to take up the space that the oxygen that I didn't get boiled out. Mm-hmm. Just take its room, like, get out of here, I got CO2 taking your place kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Then is there any science behind that or not, but that's my science. Fuck you. Anyway,
high gravity brewing like that's been used since the 1970s. I mean, all the large lager breweries use it. Bud, Foster's, Labatt's, Molson, Coors, SAB Miller. They all use high gravity brewing to produce, Bud, Miller, Coors. All the mainstream beers. Those are all brewed high gravity, and then they dilute back at packaging.
Packaging, that's good. That's the cool part. At packaging.
Now,
which is what I'm doing. My package is a cake.
By fermenting a higher gravity wort, though, that changes the profile from fermentation, does it not? Don't you end up with a slightly different beer than if you had brewed it at 3.2 or 4 or 5 or whatever the strength was normally?
Right. They talk about. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that the journal articles talk about when they were developing these practices, going to higher gravities from 14 Plato up to 16 Plato to 18 Plato, which is really in terms of our OG is going up like towards 1060 to brew a 1040 type beer. They were noticing a different ester profile after fermentation, and they could taste it in the final beer. So they started, looking at their yeast consistency. They started looking at their temperatures, and really all the things that they developed to produce a more consistent product at the end of the process compared to a low gravity beer are all the same techniques we're talking about today. Good yeast health, good pitch, consistent pitching rates, warming up towards the end of fermentation to help the yeast, better reduce byproducts. All these kind of things that we've always talked about, Jamil, came from the high gravity brewing programs of 20 years ago, or 30 years ago.
Very interesting. So they were able to account for the change in fermentation,
right,
and balance that out. So they were back to the original beer that they were trying to make.
Yeah, we're one of very, very close to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're lager brewers, so and I've never tried this with an ale. I don't think it'd have that much success. I think the higher gravity ale, then I'm talking probably in the IPA and a half range, to get a pale ale. It's going to have, I think, diluted. You're going to expose too much of the things that are produced at that. Too many esters, I think, are going to be in that. I call that blonde ale or light pale ale or something like that. So, like when I do this Bohemian Pilsner that I do every year, I start out about like 1076, and then of course I also use the Bach yeast, the 833 WLP 833. I don't know the white lab, the Y yeast number, but I like that. I use it because it's real clean. It's a low, really doesn't produce much, but it's a really good fermenter. It doesn't mind the high alcohol environment, and it's really clean. Because again, the downfall of doing this is you're going to create these other flavors at these higher gravities that you really don't want in your 4% beer, because they'll really show up. I mean, you dilute it down, you're really going to expose the beer. So basically, I can give you a recipe, but basically it's like a 1076 beer that's about, I think, 53 or 58 IBUs. So, I mean, it's pretty hoppy, but again, everything's going to be cut in half, including the IBUs. And the water is going to dilute.
What about I just have a question, too, about because you're also, you're talking about the off flavors that you might come up with, but what about just the watery flavor? Do you account for that in mash temperature or in the grain bill? Is it a different recipe than you would do if you were not diluting the beer to make up for the watery?
No.
You don't have to do that.
No, I don't think I have to. I mean,
I just was thinking that the big guys have this entire lab to figure out how to not make their beer taste watery in the high gravity part, and you're just...
Well, see, Tasty already brews a beer that's so far from watery that you can water it down and it still doesn't taste watery.
I mean, is that silly even to think, Casey?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's an excellent question. And I was going to ask something similar, which was, John, we talked about in the previous episode, we talked about how, boiling at concentration and then watering it down later, because you're boiling at a more concentrated wort, you're losing more percentage-wise of those head-forming proteins, body-forming proteins, and all that. And then when you water it down, one of the reasons against not doing a concentrated boil is, you
decrease your foam-enhancing proteins. Yeah,
right. So will you get the same problem on this?
You will. Yeah, I mean the head retention, and this is retention, is going to be less for a diluted beer like that, because the effective amount of protein in the beer has been diluted as well. So
that's why I think, Justin, that was a good question. I think it relates to this exact same thing.
Yeah. The only other side of that, and I think I agree as well, is the alcohol content is lower, so it's going to have a less of a head consuming effect as well.
Well, there's several. I mean, alcohol is just one factor that it affects head stability. There's the amount of foam positive protein that's in there. That's the building materials. You've got your hops, your isomerized alpha acids, which help bind the structure together, give it some hydrophobicity. The alcohol, which tends to break down the bubbles. But I think the head, a lot of times scientists will talk about head formation versus head stability. And I think the head formation in your diluted Pilsner is probably very comparable to the full-strength beer. I mean, when you pour it, you're probably getting a good head, but it probably doesn't last as long in the glass as the full-strength beer. Or, I think the stability is probably different.
Well, I should be able to test that because I'll have both.
Yeah. Well, and not to bash any of the fine products that are the mass market lagers, because I know they're brewing exactly what they want to brew, but those to me do not seem like they have a lot of head or head retention, and maybe that's on purpose. Mm-hmm. More beer in a glass or something like that.
Right.
Interferes with chugging beer or whatever. But
can't shoot a beer with all that foam.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of the process. And I would think if they wanted more head, they'd make sure it had more head.
Yeah, that's what they want.
So, but I wonder if that's just part and parcel of the high gravity and then dilution of brewing. Do you notice a difference in your beers that you dilute versus?
I have not observed that.
It's hard.
I'm worried about my golf swing more than anything.
Right, because you're brewing it and then diluting it down. It's not like you're brewing the same beer at that strength and then matching the two side by side to compare them. Because
I probably should do that if I was serious about this.
Yeah,
I'm not serious about anything. No, I should do that, but
that's right. You're on that.
If I'm going to be the evangelist of high gravity and diluting guy, I probably should know this.
Right. I'm just curious because I haven't done it.
Yeah.
I've done very little dilution.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good style, and I need a lot of light beer, so maybe I will do a regular gravity.
I'd be curious as to the comparison of the two. And Justin, being the
he's going to do some science right
on the spot science man. He's got his PBR Light, and he's got his Sierra Nevada Summerfest. And he's going to compare the two.
I thought even just to look at the head retention would be interesting.
Right. Yeah. And I imagine the PBR. He's grabbing his dildo bottle opener and opening a bottle.
That's all we have here, of course.
You reach around the studio and grab anything.
Wait a minute. That's not going to happen.
Now, to test head forming capacity, do you pour in a tilted glass or do you dump it right in?
Just dump it right in.
Okay.
Hit the bottom in the middle.
So can of PBR Light first.
Head retention.
And I'll pour
to quite gassy.
Yeah.
It's forming a nice head there. PBR.
And then the Sierra Summerfest
retaining
out of a bottle, pouring the same way. Actually seems to be a little less, maybe just a little less carbonated, not necessarily head forming.
It's a finer bubble in the Sierra Nevada. That's a fine, tight little bubble there you got going there, baby. And then and then the PBR is a much larger bubble, and it's collapsing
pretty quick.
At a pretty good clip.
Yeah. Because I would think, because when you had said that, it just made me think, I remember some pretty foamy light beers, and I wondered then if they did make up for it, add some kind of a protein.
I think because I'm usually shotgunning them directly out of the can.
Well, the keg stands are kind of, it's hard to get that foamy beer out of those things.
You can kind of see it on the webcam too, guys, if you're watching justin.tv/brewing network.
That PBR, that's got a pretty good headstand.
Well,
there.
Again, they're on top of that shit. I mean, they might have made a high gravity beer and diluted it, but they did the same test.
But again, this was kind of where my question stems from, because you're not exactly able to test this stuff, Tasty, in your lab,
my lab,
which is really your dog.
Well, the beer's gone before I brew the next batch. So
one final factor that may be at work here in Justin's test is that the PBR Light is probably made using hop extract.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'll really help with head retention, yeah.
That's right. Those compounds really aid head retention.
Right.
You get egg white head formation, and you'll see it a lot in double IPAs because craft brewers tend to use hop extract to really bump up the IBU levels in a double IPA. It's hard to get enough hops in the beer without it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty darn close in these two right here.
Yeah, I can't see much difference in terms of the
Well, I saw bubble size was the biggest thing.
That
for
was
me,
observable, but otherwise they're the same.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that from here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I still think the Sierra is doing a little bit better on retention.
Well, and the other thing that I was asking about
Lacing's
too
good
is
on the PBR.
It is good, actually. It's really good on the PBR. Is kind of mouthfeel and the body of a beer. Now I know a light beer is a light beer. It's not full bodied, but I still feel like if you brewed a 3.2 beer, it would have more mouthfeel and body than diluting to a 3.2 beer.
That is correct.
And so then I just wonder if there's a way for you, Tasty, to make up for that in some sort of in the grain bill
like
or
a high mash temperature.
Yeah,
or
I can make a high
protein rest.
You could do that, right. Problem is, my finish is going to be a little bit higher with that high mash temperature. Of course, at the same time, excuse me, if
he lives that long,
if I live,
right.
For instance, say I made a 1080 beer, and it because it was 1080, it finished at 1020.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's pretty high, except I'm going to water it down. I really finished at 1010,
Mm-hmm.
but I started at 40 because I watered it down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
so that. But I still may have a beer that has a more body that way.
Right.
Because it's fully attenuated, but it finished at 1010 against 1040.
Yeah, that is one of the things working in your advantages. Those higher gravity beers tend to not attenuate quite as much.
Right. So you're going to have
okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that's anecdotal evidence that it might have more body. I don't know, but
right.
Well,
by measurement.
As we were saying last show, the total protein level in the 1080 beer is going to get knocked down quite a bit during the boil.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to take that and then you're going to dilute it, after the fact.
Right. So you definitely will have less protein than if you
had brewed it
the
to
beer
the same
straight.
final gravity.
Right.
Yeah. But, on the other hand, you get, in terms of commercial beers these days, that's the way they've been brewing them for the last 20, 30 years.
Right.
That's exactly the flavor that you expect. That's what you've had you had last week, you had last year.
That body, that flavor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not really. I
don't know it, but others know it.
Yeah. I've been drinking those for a while.
You want to taste the PBR Light next to this Sierra Summerfest?
Yeah.
So just in case you don't get Summerfest in your area,
taste comparison here.
It's Sierra Nevada Summer Lager. And I really like it, actually. I think it's a nice, full-bodied lager, but it's
5.5%.
It's crisp and refreshing. Yeah, it's low. It's 5.5%. 5% actually,
5%.
According here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the Hop Festival a couple years ago, and there were several German brewers there, and standing around drinking various beers, and Summerfest was one of them. And I was talking to this German brewer, and I said, I think this is one of the best Pilsners I've ever had. And he goes, yeah, you're right. It's a really good Pilsner.
Now, Justin, doesn't that PBR seem real metallic to you?
Yeah, even in the smell. Actually.
Yeah, it was really strong. That's what I noticed. I was thinking, I wonder if it's the glass, but it's also in the
came out of the can.
Flavor. Yeah,
I don't taste it as much actually.
Not as much, but in the
aroma. There it is in the aftertaste.
Yeah, that's real metallic.
Yeah, I thought all these cans are supposed to have some special lining now.
Yeah, magic lining.
I wouldn't automatically blame the can, but
yeah.
Maybe something else.
Could be that it's been rolling around in my cooler for the last week.
I don't know. I mean,
By the way, I blame Andy Wood that I even have this in my refrigerator.
Oh, he left it.
I want to put that off on somebody else. What do you think of? Can you get past it? Like, can you get it to mouthfeel or anything? Can you get past the metallic for that?
Yeah. It was kind of a little thin, and compared to the Summerfest.
Yeah, I imagine it's also probably
right.
more like a 3.2 beer, the Pabst Light, as opposed to a 5.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
it is what it is. They know what they're doing. They're brewing good beer, and it's just like Bud, Miller Coors, Budweiser, or Miller Genuine Draft, or any of these. They're really well made beers to what they're trying to do.
Right.
They know what they're doing.
They're checked daily.
These aren't idiots. These are brewing scientists, doing exactly what they want to do.
No, and I agree. And I didn't
just whether
mean
you
to
like it or not. That's a whole nother thing. So,
and I definitely didn't mean to rank it better or not. I just I feel like I can taste that this was a beer that has been watered down for the purposes of being a light beer.
Yeah, it seems
and
real,
the Summerfest
real
is
thin.
not.
Right.
Yeah, it seems
Real
thin.
I
Yeah.
think if you brewed a 3.2, you'd have a little more body to it.
Well,
we had a 3.2 beer in Des Moines, Iowa at Court Avenue Brewing, and he had an ordinary bitter, and it had a lot more body than that. Of course, it depends on what you're doing, but that made a big difference.
Well, Justin, take the Summerfest and add about 15% water to it.
And then see if it's
good. Taste them side by side.
That's a good point. I could do that.
Be watery.
I just wanted to point out, too, there's a guest in the chat room, and maybe you know what the hell he's talking about, Palmer, because I certainly don't. But he said the reason that PBR has a higher head retention is because they add PGA, propylene glycol alginate.
Ah.
And he sent me a link that,
Yeah, I don't doubt that they get the head they want by whatever means they need. Sure.
Yeah. I'll get
They get all
whatever.
the
I'll
head
get
they
the head I want,
I'm the same
whatever
way.
means.
Yeah, you bet
if
your
it's
ass.
PGA, PBP,
Teeth, no teeth, we don't care. Yeah.
Right.
Cash, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I'll do.
Yeah. Geriatric, whatever.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think we've somehow. Well, and one of the interesting things, I stopped by August Shell on my way back from the conference in New Ulm, Minnesota.
Isn't that a cool place?
I love that place.
Yeah.
I love the folks there, the beers there. They're doing just fantastic traditional German beers, and they're like German craft beer 150 years ago. That's like the kind of recipe. It's like a Pilsner. It's like a craft beer lover's Pilsner. It's firmly bitter. It's hoppy. It's crisp. It's malty. It's great. All their beers were just fantastic, really well brewed, and they also have they bought a line of beer that went out of business. I can't remember what it is, but it was one of these regionals that was doing like 2 million barrels, and they got squeezed out by the big boys, right? So they bought the license to that, and they're brewing it because there's a lot of people around there who still love it. So they're helping fill this need of these beer lovers, and it's a lager beer with these weird kind of fruity esters and stuff. And I tried that too. They're like, if you want to try it, go ahead. And my thing was, it's not really my cup of tea, but I could see how people would like this.
Some flavors in there
and get used to it. And really come to love it. And there's no other beer out there that tastes like this. I guarantee it. But I could also see how it was really well made. They know exactly what they're doing. They're brewing, exactly what is intended. It's not a mistake. It's it's not a beer I would drink a lot of, or maybe I would. I don't know. But I found it really interesting, and I actually rather enjoyed getting a chance to try that. So I was really impressed. And if you ever get a chance, August Shell, you go out there. They got this 150-year-old brewery, 5 stories tall. Everything was gravity fed back then. It's the original building. It's original property. The original mansion. They got peacocks running around. They got deer. They got the still that Grandpa chopped up with an axe when he thought the feds were closing in on him.
That's awesome.
It is a fantastic place. It's well worth going out there if you get a chance. They do tours all the time. Really fantastic. Anyways, a little sidetrack there. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll wrap this up, answer your questions. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on.
This is Brew Strong.
We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmasters database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then bam, click Buy Recipe and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmasters Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmasters Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BN Army in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
Do you support the Brewing Network? Do you brew your own? Are you looking for an economical, fun, and legal way to do both? Subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine and do just that. All year long, Brew Your Own will surprise you, entertain you, and educate you with articles on beer and brewing from authors like the Brewing Network's very own Jamil and John Palmer. Each issue is a full pint of brewing techniques, homebrew stories, tips and photos, projects to make yourself, and recipes for the avid home brewer. Get your tough questions answered by Mr. Wizard, and polish your style accuracy with Jamil. A portion of every subscription goes to the Brewing Network, so subscribe today at byo.com/Brewing Network, or just click the BYO logo on the Brewing Network homepage and support a fantastic hobby and your favorite broadcaster. Brew Your Own, the how-to homebrew beer magazine.
Whether I'm making me dry stout or rebuilding me kegs, I head to the heart of dear Dublin for me homebrewing supplies.
You head all the way back to Emerald Isle just for a wee batch of grain or a bit of keg tubing?
No, you moronic waste of liver. Dublin, California. I go to Hoptech.
For 30 years, Hoptech in Dublin, California has been supplying homebrewers with malt extract, fresh grains, hops, spices and sugars, hop oils and extracts, and much more. Hoptech is one of the first homebrew supply shops on the internet and is proud to offer award-winning beer kits, both online and in their store.
Mention the BN Army for a 10% discount off your order.
The store is open every day except Wednesday, or shop online at hoptech.com anytime. Hoptech is run by passionate, award-winning brewers who live, love, and travel for beer and bring their experience to the store for you.
If you don't want to visit Dublin, just call toll-free 800-DRY-HOPS or go to hoptech.com.
Visit Hoptech today in Dublin, California, and at hoptech.com.
When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious. Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right. Tasty, I always have a good time when you're in the studio.
Oh, thanks. It's always fun.
It's nice to have you on our show.
Yeah. Well, the shows
Sure
are pretty
is.
much like we talk the same way off the air as we do on the air. Just talk about beer and shit.
Yeah, we use less dick jokes off the air.
I can believe.
Yeah, this is probably true, actually.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap this bad boy up. So, anything we got left to say about high gravity brewing? Have we covered it all?
We've covered everything as far as my thing about high gravity and diluting.
Okay.
Though I did, during the discussion, one thing came up. It's like, well, I said I was blending with my brewing water, except when my brewing water goes through the fermentation process, a lot of the minerals that are in that are depleted, right? Or does it? So maybe I should
chelate it out.
I should like back off in the minerals
in
in the blending water. I might be getting too much of a mineral flavor in my finished beer that way.
A chelation or whatever,
So
where it binds
don't-
with the fats and stuff.
Don't do as I do. And maybe in some ways, if you run like a really soft beer, maybe just use distilled or RO water. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, but be sure to boil it first.
Boil it. Get the O2 out.
Yeah, get the oxygen, get any organics out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Professional breweries, they do both carbon filtration and low pressure, boiling to draw off all the volatiles they can. They get their oxygen levels down to like 5 parts per billion.
So so John's saying low pressure boiling. When he's talking, they pull a bit of a vacuum and they boil air to draw off as much of the volatiles, or
yeah. That way they don't. I mean, there otherwise there'd be a risk of adding oxygen to the finished beer and accelerating staling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you want to, if you're going to dilute, you want to boil that water first.
Yeah, oxygen and all these other gases that are in the atmosphere, they go right into that solution, into that liquid, that water, very rapidly, and you end up with an issue there. So you got to be careful about that. All right. Anything else to add, John?
Nope, that was it.
We covered it?
I think so.
Justin, questions from the chat?
Yeah, one question. Hoppy Mads in the chat room. Kind of goes back to, I think, our first High Gravity show, but important nonetheless. I just started cracking grain with a mate on a new mill, he says, and my efficiency was about 10 points low. Can the malt crush affect the efficiency this much? And certainly in a high-gravity brew, how does the crush affect efficiency and getting what we want out of it?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the biggest factors in efficiency. The crush of the grain, the access of the liquid to the particles of starch. That makes a big difference. If they're too together, too whole, it can't get through to it. And with a really long mash time, maybe it would, but it really increases the amount of conversion time. Anything else to add to that, John?
No, I agree. If the crush was very coarse, then you're going to see a difference in extract efficiency. Come up 5-10 points low.
Between real coarse and real fine, there's 10 to 20 points. I mean, a substantial amount in a high gravity beer. Good percentage.
and then it goes. I mean, assuming his technique, last brew to this brew is the same, then a coarser crush would affect his extraction that way.
I would imagine you could go easily 25% change in efficiency based on crush alone.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
but you can still get 65% efficiency with uncrushed grain just by soaking it, by mashing long enough and lautering enough.
Right.
So you can still get numbers, but you can make bad beer. It's a matter of finding the sweet spot.
We all like the sweet spot.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that wraps it up. That's our high gravity series. We covered everything from I don't know what is high gravity brewing to how you do it.
Yeah, how you do it, how you brew it, how you ferment.
Next series of shows is going to be on God knows what. We base it off of your input. You email us at brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com. And we take that information, we make shows out of it, and hopefully answer the things that you got. We got a Q&A show coming up next where we'll answer your questions live. And speaking of emailing, if you're going to email somebody, email John Blickman at blickmanengineering.com. They pay for the show, they sponsor the show, so you don't have to pay for it. Great guys there, great equipment. They really are creative and true engineering geeks.
Yep.
Yeah. And great stuff. So check it out on their website and send them an email telling them you appreciate that they pay for the show for you. And also check out the Brewing Network site. We got lots of good gear in there. We got books, we got hats, we got shirts, lots of Brew Strong stuff. And when we see you at these events, we want you to come out to these events, but it's nice if you're sporting a Brewing Network Hop Grenade or a Brew Strong shirt, something like that. I love to see those. It does my heart a good turn. Also, if you get a chance, there's a BYO link there. Click on that. You can sign up for the magazine, and half of that goes to the Brewing Network. Helps cover the cost of supporting programming like this for you and yours. And until later, just remember, I love you too, random citizen. Brew strong.
Brew strong.